Welcome to another video by Ferris Technology. Today we're going to talk about several different subjects. We're going to talk about concatenation, changing the case of data that's already in your fields, trimming the data that's in your fields. We're going to find a replace function. We're going to take a telephone field that's just all characters and make it look pretty with the parentheses and the dashes. And we're going to then also pad an invoice number so that the invoice number can contain leading zeros and fill up a field of 10 rather than have the numbers lopped off. And then we're going to take a field that a client had put all of the names in and put the last name, first name, and middle initial all in one field. We're going to break that up and put it in the three different fields, first, last, and middle initial, and we'll show you how to do that. So stand by. Let's go. So the first thing we're going to do is go look at how to concatenate two different fields. So what I want to do is pull up, figure 14 has my example. I'm going to put it in design view today. All I'm going to do is take a field called my test. Now let me show you what that looks like. In my lead list data set, it's 24,884 records. So there's a substantial amount of test data in here. Over here to the right, I have several blank fields. And my test is one of those blank fields that I'm going to use to, modify data, update data, and just show you the results of the various queries as we go through this particular video. So in this particular one, I want to concatenate the type and the code field. Now, the ampersand is used between two fields. The fields are denoted by brackets, by the square brackets, not the curly braces, but the square brackets, the ampersand, and a square bracket. Now, putting these two together like this, if I just do the viewer here, it's going to not show me anything. Well, why is that? Well, this is what they call an update query. And update query will just show you before the update if you click on the view. In fact, you have to actually run it and throw the data in the table before you could actually see what the result is. So I'm going to go ahead and run it, and it's going to update all 24,884 rows. And I'm going to click, yes, I do want to update that. And I'm going to then go over here to lead list and see what my data looks like. Now, what it's done is it's concatenated the type, DB, with the code 100199. Now that doesn't look very pretty. In fact, it just doesn't look very good at all. Those codes are kind of nice, but okay. Let's pretty it up just a little bit. Here you can see as I magnify this area, you can see that I've got type, ampersand, and then in double quotes, I have a dash, and then I put as an ampersand and then the field. So I've denoted a field, the text I want to put between them, and then the next field. So when we do this one and we run it, I'm going to update those same 24,000 rows, and I'm going to look at lead list now. And now I have a quick and easy way to see which was the type and which was the code, very quickly separated by a dash. So you can see that concatenating is actually quite an easy effort. So I'm going to close those. Let's move on to our next subject. Let's say I want to change case. I go over here to this data over here, and I've got a lot of data that's either all lowercase or all uppercase. So let's play around with that a little bit. And we'll look at this particular one in design view. And as we look at this field right here, we're going to play around with the address field. What I want to do here is I want to convert this string. And in a string convert, what it does is it takes the field name, so address in regular straight brackets, and then 3. The type 3 means it's going to convert just the first letter of each word in the field. So I will go ahead and look at my address field. Let's see what it looks like beforehand. Here's what the address field looks like beforehand. It's got a number and it's got everything in lowercase. That doesn't look very good. I'm going to go ahead and look at query design and click run. And I'm going to update all 24,800 records. And now let's go look at it. Let's go see what that address field looks like now. And now you can see that instead of all lowercase, it has now the first letter of each word in uppercase and the rest of it left in lowercase. Now there's three different options for the string convert, and that is number one. In other words, when you're over here, as we look at this string convert address, comma, this is what I'm talking about, that number at the end. If you put a 1 in there, it'll convert everything to uppercase. If you put a 2 in there, it'll convert everything to lowercase. If you put a 3 in there, it'll convert the first letter of each word to uppercase. So you've got three options to use with the string convert, and you can take care of any ugly looking characters. Now, this also works if you're looking at data that's kind of mixed up. Some of it's in all uppercase, some of it's in all lowercase, some of it's upper and lowercase. So some of it's right, some of it's wrong to the uppercase, some of it's wrong to the lowercase. So your data entry person just was all over the place when they put the data in there. So what we're going to do there is we can use the number 3 and convert it all to the uppercase first letter and lowercase rest of it. In other words, it'll take in lowercase the uppercase letters that aren't supposed to be, and uppercase the first letter still. And it'll fix up all those mixed case issues. Okay. So what if you have a bunch of data where you've got spaces before and spaces after, like we look here in the state, and it looks like either Massachusetts is centered or it has spaces in front of it. Well, that makes it pretty difficult. It has spaces in back of it too. It makes it pretty difficult to do any analysis of data like this. Like, for example, here we've got AB without the spaces in front, and then we've got, AB with the spaces in front. So if I wanted to look for Alberta, and AB is the 2-letter designation I want to look for, I'm going to have to look for 2 different versions of that AB. One's with spaces, one's without. That's not good. So let's just go ahead and fix that. And it's not too hard to do. If you go look at a function called trim, and what trim does is it says, hey, if it finds extra spaces in the field, it will trim off any extra spaces, both before and after the text. So in doing that, let's go ahead and run it. And it's going to update all 24,800 records. And I'm going to go look at lead list now. And voila, Massachusetts here is slung over to the left like it should. And if I look at the data here, AB is here, and I don't find another instance of AB, because now all the ABs are all the same. And so if I run a query looking for AB, I'm not going to have to run a query looking for wildcards before and wildcards after just to make sure I catch them all. I've got good, consistent data that I can go ahead and do all my analytics and reports on and not have to worry about that. Okay, so let's go to our next one. How many times have you seen a situation where you need to replace data? And in wanting to replace the data, you try to do, okay, I'm going to click on address here, and I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to do replace here, and I'm going to fill in what I'm looking for and replace it with whatever, and I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to twiddle my thumbs forever and ever and ever, because for some reason the replace function takes a long time in Microsoft Access. It also is pretty inefficient, because what happens if later on one of your users puts that anomaly right back into the data? Well, if they do that, then you got to start over again with another find and replace. And let's see if we can kind of put that in code and be able to quickly do it instead. And as I magnify this little area here, what I'm going to do is there is a replace function, And so I'm going to use a replace function, and it works just like the find and replace text box, where it says, in what field am I looking? The address field. What am I looking for? ST. What am I going to replace it with? STREET. Okay, now street and street are, of course, in double quotes. And if I do this, and I look at this, I should be able to see there, it should replace that one, and it should replace that one, okay? So let's put it back here and actually run it. So here, Hindi Street, all spelled out. Let's say I wanted to replace drive, and I'm going to look for drive here, and I'm going to spell out DRIVE. And now, let's go ahead and hit the save button on that, and let's go run it. And there we have drive replaced. So we've been quite a ways down the road now. So let's go ahead and look at our last couple, actually our last three. We're going to modify a string of numbers into what looks like a telephone number. And we'll then pad an invoice. We'll put some leading zeros on an invoice to make it look like the kind of invoice that the company manager wants. And then we're going to use the instring function to split up a name field where all the name is in one field. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and look at our next one here. That's telephone. Now the telephone number over here, let's go look at it. Our telephone number, oh gee whiz. Our telephone number and our fax number are just a string of numbers. And it looks like it's got the international calling code here. It's got an area code here. Nope, it doesn't. So at 164, that's an odd thing. 164 is an area code. 435 is the prefix and 4 digits after it here. So we have a phone number that's beginning with 3, but it is a 10-digit phone number. So we can look at just the 10-digit phone number. What we're looking for is to go ahead and take the phone field. And so we're going to put a paren, and then we're going to concatenate the left of phone, the 3 characters to the left of phone, okay? Those 3 characters, of course, are the area code. And then we're going to ampersand and put a close paren on that one. We're going to ampersand and do a mid-string. We're going to start at the 4th character, 1 character past the area code, and we're going to go for 3 more characters. Then we're going to concatenate that, and in the double quotes, we're going to put a dash and then concatenate the right of the telephone number or the last 4 characters. So a left string, mid string, and right string function in order to tweeze out the pieces, and then we're manually putting in those extra parts that we want to make it look like a good phone number. So let's go ahead and run this. It'll run it on all the records. And when I click yes, we can look at lead list over here, and voila, lo and behold, we now have area code, prefix, dash, last 4 digits for a good looking phone number. In fact, we could have probably put a space in here, because a lot of times I'll see a space between the area code and the text here. And you can really do anything you want. You can put a space there. You can add a 1 to the front if you know that they're all US numbers and there's just a 1 if you're dialing long distance. You can do all kinds of things to it and manipulate it the way you want to. All right, so let's go look at padding an invoice. Now this is a really, really tricky one. This one's fun. So this one I'm going to roll on my own here. We're going to go ahead and just create a query, because I want to show you a little trick on how to take an invoice field, for example. And so we're going to pull this lead list, and we're going to actually play with company number, but this could be applied to invoice number or anything else. But we want the company number to look more like a text field. We want it to only be 10 characters. We want it to fit into just the space that we have on any invoice. So we have the company name and company number, and it fits just perfectly where we want it on our invoice, and all the formatting looks good. So this is more of a reporting trick so that you can get the data to look the way you want it to look when you print out that data. So when we look at lead list and look at company number, we're going to go all the way to the left, I believe. And here are those company numbers, and they're all over the place, from old companies that came with us when we first started the business, and they're really low numbers, to company numbers that are really long because now we have hundreds of thousands of customers. And so these numbers tend to be long, and you've got a bunch of short ones, and they're just all over the place. And we'd like them to look more conforming. Let's look at what we can do with this. So the way I'm going to do this is I am going to go ahead and use a right string function and open paren there. And then I'm going to do a right string on a concatenation. Now I'm going to type in 10 zeros. And I'm going to right click. I'm going to add the closing quote. And then I'm going to concatenate that with the company number. So now I've got a string that is concatenated together with company number. I've got 10 zeros, and the company number, whatever length it is, it's going to add to those 10 zeros. Now I'm going to put a comma here, and I'm only going to take the right 10 characters of that function. So when I expand it all out now, you see that I've got a right string function looking at this concatenation of zeros plus the company number, and I'm only going to take the right 10 characters. And I'm going to do this in an update query. Now we have right string, company number. Okay, so let's take a look at what that does. Zeros padded in the front of all of our company numbers. So only 2 zeros in front of this one where it was longer, and multiple zeros, 6 zeros in front of that one because it was 4 characters, 7 in front of this one because it was 3 characters. And so now we've concatenated on the front a short number of zeros that pads our data. Now, this last one is a really, really challenging one, because sometimes there's an occasion where you've got to parse off a particular field and put it in another field so that it can actually be usable. Now, I'm actually not going to do the update query that puts it in another field. I'm just going to use a select query, because a lot of times all the testing that you have to do with these particular queries is better done when you are using a select query than when you're actually doing an update query. You don't have the overhead of changing it in the file, purging it from the file, trying it again, and getting it to where it's actually working. So let's move on. What I have is a weird looking name field. And this name field has a challenge. Now, they've been very consistent. They have been very consistent in the way they've put the data in, meaning they always put last name, comma, first name, comma, middle initial, period. So it's been consistent all the way through the data, and I've checked so that I can count on that. So how do I then take the first name, Ernest, in this first case, and then the middle initial, and then the last name, which is on the left-hand side? How do I get those pieces parsed off and put into the data the way I like to? It turns out you have to use a different trick for each of those 3 parts. So let me show you. The first one is a fairly straightforward left string. Now, the left string takes input of the string that you're going to do and the number of characters that you want to retrieve. Now, in order to capture the number of characters you want to retrieve on the fly, instead of a standard number all the time, you use an in-string function, which returns an integer to you, the number of characters out where a particular character resides. So I know that I've got a comma at the end of every last name. And knowing that I have a comma at the end of every last name, I've told the in-string function to look for that comma and give me the number of characters that comma is at. Now, I want that -1 because I don't actually want the comma. I want the left string function to just pick up everything to the left of that comma. So I've put in a -1. Now, that one's fairly straightforward. If you want the middle initial, that's fairly straightforward. You just go to the end of the string and back it up by 2 characters, and away you go. So I'm just doing a right string, contact name, 2 characters. Bingo. I know I have a period and a middle initial. I'm going to back it up those 2 characters, and that's it. I'm done. I am done. So the challenge comes in calculating or figuring out this first name function. And notice this one gets a little bit lengthy. Now, what I'm going to do here is a midstring function requires 3 inputs. Those 3 inputs are the text that you're going to parse, the start number that you're going to start at, the number of characters into your field, and then the number of characters you want to retrieve. Well, that's all in the middle of the string, and I need to calculate that on the fly. So I know that what I'm looking for is the second comma. Now, the second comma means that I can start looking for the data a couple characters past where that first comma is. I'm going to go ahead and place my start number at the first comma here, +2. So that's the start of my string, and that was fairly easy to identify. Now, the next piece is I need to calculate on the fly the length of the string that I want, which means that I can go to the length of my field in total. How much is the length of my text? Well, the length of my text, if I look here, is to the end of the period -1, 2, 3, 4. So the end of that length is that I want to go to is 4. Now I need to subtract where this is right here. So really what I want is the location of that space. Okay, I'm going to take the length -4. Then I'm going to take the in string of the contact name at the first comma +1. That'll put me squarely on that space character, which will allow me to subtract the length of the field -4 minus the character starting at that space, and that will give me starting at the first character and counting forward till the last character of that middle initial. And the ending result then, when I execute this, is that I have this middle initial. So that's how to get that parsed off. So I hope you've enjoyed what we've presented in this particular video. We've gone over a lot of territory and some pretty complex issues. So please hit the like button and let's get this video out to as many people as we can. And if you like what you're seeing with the other videos too, please subscribe, and we'll hope to see you again later.